Hello, everyone. Welcome to a wonderful episode of Growth and Tech. We're joined by our very own Tom Harris and our special guest, the Jira guy, Rodney Nissen. Rodney, please introduce yourself and let us know what you do in the Atlassian space.
All right, my name is Rodney Nissen. I am by day a Atlassian consultant specializing in Jira, but particularly data center builds. So I kind of help clients with their problems around Jira stuff during the day, but at night I become the Jira guy. We I, I write a weekly blog about Jira, basic how-tos, um, information, news that's going on, and just try and help as many people as I can that way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. I thought you were going to say Batman, but the Jira guy is even more exciting. I'd like to talk specifically about Jira add-ons and specifically focusing on those that are useful for non-technical teams and those that help with reporting. So, Tom, if you'd like to go first and maybe introduce an add-on you're thinking of, you'd recommend.
Yeah, so just to get straight into it, for non-technical teams, Jira is quite a daunting tool. But one of the things that's often overlooked is time tracking. Is a way to manage your team's time and to actually track that as a metric. So issues themselves, the work being done, potentially story points if you're doing Scrum, those are all different ways of measuring things. But time tracking is quite important. And depending on your views, you'll probably have lots of different views of whether it's a good idea or if it's a productive way to manage people. That's all fine, but there are still things to discuss around time tracking and how best to do it. So something that I found as a consultant, talking to lots of different people, is you'd be surprised how many companies have multiple time tracking tools. Not a single source of truth. Every team, every element of the organization can have different pieces. So even just centralizing and just having a single source of truth for who's doing what when can be really helpful. And it doesn't have to be super granular, minute by minute. Even just big bucket, understanding where people are spending their time in the company, in different teams, is amazingly useful. Okay, so I've said why it's useful. So how do you get the information? As with everything, if you make something onerous and challenging, people are unlikely to do it, or they'll do a bad job. So the built-in Jira time tracking works okay. It allows you to log time fairly effectively. The tool I'd like to recommend, and the add-on that I've seen used in pretty much every organization that uses Jira, is Tempo time tracking. And this is, I'll just share my screen just so you can stop. I think Rodney just needs to let me share my screen as the host. And then just so you can look at something a bit more interesting than our faces. It's going to be just the Tempo marketplace listing, and just kind of say, they've been around for a really long time. Looking here, they've got over 25,000 Jira installations.
All right, you should be good.
Thank you very much. I'll share that now. So here you go. If we jump back to the Atlassian marketplace, I came to show you this right now, and just scroll down, and there you go. Straight away, it's a staff pick. Tempo time tracking here. It's a top selling app. So Tempo time tracking, really highly used. I like that it works consistently everywhere, cloud, server, and data center. It's got a really, really nice UI and lots of different ways you can log your time, which again is really important. So you can log your time against particular tickets. You can see here of, say, different days and view the time like this. What did I spend my time on when? You can also see logs in more of a tabular format to actually group things together. And then you get the filtering and the reporting, say, well, who spent all their time on this ticket, or what tickets did this person spend their time on? And that many-to-one, one-to-many relationship is just super useful. There's so many questions that come out of it. Everything from client reporting, how many hours do I bill, to am I spending enough time on bugs or too much time on bugs and technical debts in my team? So a lot of the questions they get asked around, product management, team management, how are we doing, comes down to, well, can you measure it? And there are ways to do that with story points and just looking at the issues, but it's surprising how powerful time tracking can be, even just in a really high level metric. And I keep saying high level because you don't necessarily need to log hour by hour, minute by minute to get this information. Even if you just do big bucket logging for your tickets, so I worked on this today, or this week I spent time on this, it still gives you something to start with. Just avoiding measuring it doesn't mean it's not there, it just means you can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, building on what you said earlier, I've had some arguments on Twitter, which everyone does, I think. But every time I mention like time tracking and time reporting, the feedback is, oh, why my manager was micromanaging me, and I'm like, well, look, that's between you and him at this point. Like, I don't think not having a tool and not knowing what's going on helps that problem.
Exactly. So, and Rodney, what about yourself? Have you had any experience with this?
I hear so many software teams say story points are king, or even t-shirt sizing, or any other estimation method. But the fact is, we as humans measure our days by hours. How many hours do I work on stuff? That's a metric that actually matters. It could be a 13-point story, but how long is it going to take me to actually get that 13-point story done? The whole point of a velocity is to translate that story point into time, what we actually measure.
Even a sprint is a 2-week period of time. You know, it's as many story points as you want, but it's still a period of time.
I am absolutely a fan of having some way to get time tracking within Jira. The built-in time logging is great, but you can't really report on that. So giving you tools to not only manage time, but report on it is absolutely critical, because that information is still going to be there. I mean, no matter how you look at it. So I'm definitely not of the, we don't need to track time anywhere. That's not me.
That's great. And exactly, I think that there's 2 parts to tracking time. There's input and output, and you just said it really clearly there. So input, I like the fact that Tempo is super easy to log time. There's ways you can start timers on issues. You can say, I'm working on this now, start the clock, stop the clock, auto log time. You can type it in, really nice, friendly interface for the user. And we started this by saying non-technical users. You want it to be easy, and you also want it to look nice. You know, friendly interfaces do help with tool adoption. So that's great from the front end, and then the back end is the reporting. And what's really nice is that you can visualize it in calendars and different formats. What I like from a project manager perspective is that you can do things like group the different time into reports, and you can also have periods. So you can say everyone can please fill in your time logs by this date, and then I'll close the time log. So you can also have some consistency as well, saying, you know, that was last month, it's not going to change. Again, there's pros and cons to that, but it does give you at least the ability to control the process a bit. Okay, so yeah, that's just a quick overview of Tempo and timesheets. Like Chris, as you said, it's a fairly controversial topic for some reason. I guess people fall into many different camps.
I often find when people are complaining, be it on Twitter or elsewhere, the question you want to ask is, who hurt you? And so if someone's terrified of, you know, why do you want to know what I'm working on right now? They've clearly been mismanaged by a micromanager at some point in their past. As I say, just as tooling isn't always the answer, not having tools isn't going to save you either. So it's all about process and culture.
I mean, Chris, me and you have had this conversation in the past on Twitter. Tools are just that. They're just tools. Jira is a tool. It can make your life easier. It can make your life harder, all depending on how you use it. But it is still, at the end of the day, just a tool.
Quite. So thanks very much for that, Tom. Really interesting. I'd be very curious to see what you'd like to share with us, Rodney.
Certainly. All right. Let me go ahead and share. Make sure I'm sharing the right thing. All right, I'm actually going to be looking at 2 apps. When we're talking about non-technical people, we have to talk about the dashboard, because that's where they often live. One of the Jira's superpowers is ability to collate, process, intake all this data, and then give you the tools to present it in a way that helps you get inferences. So I'm actually going to be talking about 2 apps. First is Rich Filter for Jira dashboards. This is a great app for creating dynamic dashboards. Just go into the screenshots here. You get to basically set up a control panel for your dashboard, and you've got a base query, and it gives you a set of information, but this allows you to dig in further. So you say you have a query for your entire team. This allows you to drill down into a particular assignee, see how, in this example, Chris Davis is doing, or George Walker, or whoever. If a certain portion of your team is out for long-term leave, you could take them out temporarily while they recover or do whatever they need to do, and then bring them back in without having to change the base query in there. So it's great for that. And again, just wealth of gadgets. When I talk to non-technical people, gadgets are kings because that's just how they display their data, and just a whole wealth of gadgets here. As I said, if you add more gadgets, you're going to make me a happy admin because it just gives my users more tools and it makes it an easier sell when I go to renew this app.
And just to check, this is all native to the Jira dashboard, right?
Yeah, this is
Yeah, I
all
think
native
that's so crucial because if you have to go somewhere else, another tab, it's just very easy for information to get siloed, right?
Yeah, so all this lives on a Jira dashboard. Same Jira dashboard you're currently using in your instance. This just allows them to become dynamic and to the point rich. That way you could pull the information for specific situations and just really drill down and understand what the data is trying to tell you. Because again, this is all what's already in your Jira instance. These are in your Jira issues. It just gives you another way to present that. So for users, that is absolutely critical, especially the non-technical users. And having set this up and play with it, it was really simple to run. I mean, something I don't have to teach users how to use also makes my day. So there's that one. And the second one, going to be really familiar to the people here, is Old Street Solutions custom Jira or custom charts for Jira. I promise I can read. Again, this kind of does the same thing. It gives you a way to kind of organize data and create these kind of dynamic charts here. But the amount of charts, I mean, getting this kind of stacked bar chart is horrendous in Jira. You're pretty much going to something like EasyBI, which is on a whole nother tab, trying to play with the data there and then bring it back into the dashboard, and that gets complicated. This is a much simpler way, and it gives you so many tools to organize and present data within a gadget. So this is one of my all-time favorites. It didn't quite get the S tier on my ranking on the blog, but it got really up there, and I loved playing with this one just because how it let me play with it. Another thing I love is in my review of this I'm like, the only thing I want is more charts. To which Chris said, oh, I'll give you more charts. I love that.
We've got 5 developers working on nothing more night and day. So.
That was awesome response. And as I said, just the sheer way it lets you present the data. This is basically an everything gadget for cover those edge cases you can't present otherwise. So I loved playing with it. And as I said, gadgets are king when you're talking to non-technical people because this is how they present their data to whoever they need to.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously we've got a lot to say on dashboard reporting and all of that. The key thing there is just non-technical users. I like the idea of taking out the fear of building reports. If you're building reports maybe once a month, and every time you come to that end of the month, you're dreading it. You hate the management meeting because it takes you half a day or 2 days to build the reports, which is very common. If you just have something already made like this or something that's really friendly and easy to use, it actually can make it more enjoyable and improve everyone's life and save you a lot of time. So the idea when you say non-technical tools or easy to use, people think, oh, it must be simple. But what you're actually selling them is time. People are gaining their time back. And if their time's worth something, which for these people like these managers at different levels, it is, and actually giving them a simple tool gives them more time to do things that they actually have value.
Well said. Said these things when I always load them up into my Jira instance when I go to run a blog post because I want to play with it. I want to feel what it's like to be the end user. I want to know what it feels like to be the admin. So when I'm writing this, I have those perspectives. Mm-hmm. And both of these apps were really easy to use. They were stuff I felt I wouldn't have to sit down and have a training session to get people to use. The adoption would be there because they're just so easy to use and they're right there where they need them to be.
Brilliant. That's great.
Well said, gents. And I think that's sort of why we found each other, and I've been enjoying your content so much. There was definitely a first wave of Atlassian add-ons which were made by very powerful technical users for very powerful technical users, and proud of how bad the UX was, right? Almost. But yeah, for anyone that's had to be a consultant on a big project and just realized how what's easy for us is not easy for them, this is a massive time save. And yeah, it's lovely seeing more and more apps invest that time and care and attention to detail into UX, because as you say, it just means so many more people adopt it. And that's really important. As Atlassian continues to grow in its use cases and the departments using it, it needs to meet people where they are, right? So people enjoy using the tools.
Yeah, one of the things I found as my previous life as just a Jira admin is you end up wearing many hats. One of the hats you have to wear is a trainer, because you have to teach people how to use JQL. You have to teach people how to build a dashboard, all that. So I'm already busy enough training people as it is. One less thing I have to worry about including in that presentation just makes my day.
Definitely, yeah. No, I can relate to that as well. Anything where they don't have to come to you repeatedly as well. So even that initial training of pointing people in the right direction, but teach them how to fish. If they can just help themselves, that's where it's really great. Just because, and some of these other tools, this is where they fall down. These technical tools is, while they might be, once they're set up, they work. It's the change, it's the maintenance. This is why things like automation for Jira were a revelation, because with Script Runner you could do the same thing. But if you ever wanted to change it, or the intern that wrote that script left, or you wanted to, God forbid, upgrade an instance with your Script Runner script, you almost couldn't. Whereas giving people the ability to maintain their instance and have future reliability, that's invaluable.
There was a point in time where I almost would beg for a Java developer just to help me maintain custom add-ons or script runner scripts or all this stuff that I just didn't either have the time or the technical expertise myself to take care of. So this next wave, or this recent wave of tools we've had come out, is just such a relief, because it just makes life so much simpler.
Yeah, and speaking as a less technical user of these tools, I understand how frustrating it is for a technical person whose time is busy and very expensive, let's be honest. But also for me, it just makes me reluctant to go to them. And that's the added cost, that's the hidden cost, is when people just start not making the reports they should be making, not sharing the data they should be sharing, because it's just too much effort, and they know it is, and they know it's a resented chore. So they start either it's in an Excel sheet somewhere because that's where they could use it, or worse, they just sort of like avoid the meeting and give vague statistics because they don't want to run the report, right?
Yeah.
I've seen both of those. I'm following a project from a YouTuber who's building a machine that plays music using steel marbles, and he's doing all his project management in Excel because it's just, he is a non-technical person. He's got a lot of work to do, and he doesn't have the time to learn a tool like Jira or Microsoft Project or any other tool. And I still cringe every time he brings up the Excel sheet, because I'm like, there's so many better ways to do it.
Yeah, but as you say, people are busy, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why I do, Trello is the perfect use case that I always try and say, like, Trello, they're like, oh yeah, I've used that before. Like, it's such a good way in to people to just understand the concept of management.
For the blog, I use Trello to manage it, because it's not worth setting up a whole specific Jira project, even though the blog is about Jira, and Trello is just perfect for that use case.
I love Trello, the gateway drug to project management.
Very much so.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I think that's short, sweet, to the point. Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to plug or promote, Rodney?
Nothing particularly right now. I said the blog, it posts every Wednesday, noon Eastern. I believe that is currently 4 GMT. So
I would genuinely recommend it. I found that it's that, as we were talking about, it'll be useful for powerful users. Some tips and tricks you didn't know there, and it just explains things in pure, simple language for people getting to grips with Jira for the first time as well. It's a really good blog.
I try and think of my target audience when I'm writing as the Jira admin who just got the box. Maybe they're a little bit technical, they've worked on some other stuff before, but Jira is a completely new beast to them, and they've got to figure it out. I was that person before, and I try and write to that person. And it usually isn't. It helps the technical people because the information's still there, but the non-technical people don't feel overwhelmed. So that's my mindset when I'm writing, and I'm glad that's coming across.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Thank you,
really
Rodney.
is. Okay, no, that's everything from me as well. Like I said, it's the tools for non-technical teams are the future with Atlassian, particularly with their recent announcements of server, kind of sunsetting server, and cloud being the future as well. They say 90% of their new users are on cloud, and if you thought they were non-technical people before, I think people are going to be surprised at how non-technical the new wave of users is going to be.
Yep, but they said the blog, you can find it at thejiraguy.com. I'm here to help. I'm always taking topic requests. If anyone wants anything in particular covered, just send me a message through the site and I'll be happy to consider it.
We will do. Thank you, Rodney. We'll have a link below, and we will resubmit custom charts for Jira. We've got a couple more features coming out soon, which I think will push us into the STO.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's the plan.
Sure you are. Thank you so much for your time. Lovely to talk.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.